What up? It's your girl Sharryse, and I have a phenomenal woman on the line. She's an author, a poet, and a motivational speaker. That's no other than Miss Lena Arnold. Hello, my love. How are you?
I love that introduction. Oh my gosh.
You listen. Look, you're awesome. So it couldn't be anything less than awesome.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I'll come on your show anytime.
Oh,
keep saying those wonderful things about me.
I'll be hitting you up again. So we're going to jump right into the interview. So when did you realize that you had a talent for writing? Like, how did this all start?
I was 11 years old, and we had an assignment in, I think it was 5th grade, to write a poem. And I wrote a poem about cats, and my teachers raved about it. You know, they sent it around the school and they were talking about it and they just encouraged me, and I got an A. And that was the first time anyone had really told me I was good at something. And so shout out to teachers. If you're out there, you know, you can make a big difference, and you do all the time in the life of a child. But when you tell somebody that they're good at something, especially when they're really young, it just is so empowering. And from that moment forward, when I realized that, wow, I'm really good at this, I kept doing it. And then it became, over time, it just kind of became cathartic as I was dealing with a lot of my father's, you know, things that he was doing to my mom at home. And it just became a way of escape. And then I fell in love with writing because I started to read a lot, and I read a lot of the Renaissance writers. I loved James Baldwin was one of my favorite, Richard Wright, and many of the writers from that time. And then, of course, I'm in Dayton, Ohio, home of Paul Laurence Dunbar. So it's kind of like you have to read his poetry growing up. So reading it, falling in love with it, and then realizing that I was really good at it. So it was like, oh, cool.
Okay, nice. Now, I read in your bio, and I believe it's safe to say that you have a strong spiritual background. Are you into a specific denomination, or are you currently non-denominational?
I would consider myself non-denominational, but my faith is, I would be considered, I guess, you know, if you had to put a name to it, it would be called Christians. Although I always like to just say that the original Christians never called themselves that. It was kind of a name someone else put on them. So that's my faith. My background is a Christ-centered background. My directional guide would be the Bible. And, you know, just trying to live my life according to the Word of God.
Okay, amen.
I'm not always perfect, but you know, thank God He doesn't require that.
Right.
Because I'd be in trouble.
Did your parents have anything to do with your faith growing up, or was this something that you found later on in life?
I would have to say yes for the most part. My mom, my grandparents' background would be Baptist. My mom was raised a Baptist. She's kind of been all over the map, though, because she became a Catholic at one point because she thought Catholics had money, and she wanted to be like the Catholics because she thought they were rich. And then she went from the Catholic church to a holiness church, which I hated. Which that's a whole nother thing right there.
But we talk about that for hours.
I could tell you many stories. But then I lived with an aunt during my senior year of high school and started going back to a Baptist church, which is where I committed my life to the Lord in the Baptist church, and spent a lot of time in Baptist churches during my college years, and then came back and went to a non-denominational, they called themselves a non-denominational, but they were really charismatic Pentecostal. And there, just, you know, my husband and I have pretty much kind of have our home fellowship and kind of teach our kids from home, and we haven't really found a place. But I said a lot. I didn't mean to go around. Long story short, but that's kind of all over the map to some degree. But in college, I studied many of the different religions, the Eastern religions, Western religions, because I really wanted to have an understanding of what other people believed.
Okay.
And I think it's important when you are a person of faith, of any faith, I think it's really important that you study other people's faith.
All right. Now, back to the writing. So, you've been endorsed by CBS News correspondent Ed Bradley for your work as a journalist. What are some magazines or organizations that you've written for?
Most of them I've been Dayton Daily News, Discover the Dayton Region magazine, and then my blog. I met Ed Bradley when I was a student writer at Wright State, and I had the privilege of introducing him, and I had to do a lot of research on him to study. He was one of my heroes in the field of journalism, and so I had a chance to meet him, and he read my poetry and things like that. So that endorsement was from him reading a lot of the personal things, not personal things, and not personal because they're all in my books now. The things that I wrote, and he was just really impressed with the level of research that I did on him when I had to introduce him and write an article about him. Mm-hmm. And he was so kind and so wonderful to write me that glowing endorsement.
That's awesome. I mean, that's a blessing right there. You know, you don't.
And I don't know how the age of your listeners, but so many people don't even know who Ed Bradley is, and it's so unfortunate because he was one of the most amazing journalists to ever be on the planet.
Well, my listeners are pretty young, so if you're listening right now, make sure you go out there and research Ed Bradley.
Yes.
Now, what's the name of the first book you wrote, and what's the inspiration behind it?
The first book was called For This Child We Pray, Living with the Secret Shame of Infertility. Technically, I actually published a little book called Wings many 1,000 years ago, but that was the first professionally published book, and that was chronicling the journey of our 16-year struggle with infertility, which ultimately culminated in us going through in vitro to conceive. And, you know, we wrote the book for two reasons. One, a lot of people of faith, particularly Christians, tend to be a little superstitious sometimes, and they tend to be very flippant when people are having problems. And a lot of times, instead of telling you to go to the doctor, giving you some, what I like to call concrete advice that you can actually work with, they tend to be overly spiritual. Oh, just pray. Or you need to pray more. You need to have more faith, or you need to pay more tithes, or, if you give, God will give it back to you, and all these kind of ridiculous things that people say. And so we wanted to and then there's a lot of myths associated with infertility, not only in the Christian community, but in the Black community. There's this myth that Blacks don't have infertility problems. There's a myth that even slaves, you just had a baby, you went back in the field and started picking cotton. But in reality, that's not the case. And infertility affects all races equally. And statistically, it's the same all over. But we're the ones who tend to not go and get help. And so now that has changed a lot since we first wrote the book. We were the first to have a book about infertility from both the Black and the Christian standpoint. And so we just wanted to dispel a lot of those myths and tell people, this is not a spiritual issue. This is a medical issue. And you need to go to a medical doctor and get some medical help. That doesn't mean you don't have faith and you don't pray and you don't trust God, because we saw God work a lot of miracles for us, including the fact that, we didn't have to pay one dime. My husband got a job. We don't even know how he got referred for the job. He was one class away from finishing his engineering degree, got called to come interview for Honda, wasn't even finished, and come to find out that they pay for infertility, so we didn't have to pay anything.
That is truly a blessing.
Yeah. And then, I'm sorry. Let me let you ask the questions before I just keep on going.
Okay, so are you currently in the process of writing another book? And if so, can we expect a release date?
I just actually finished about a year ago my children's book, Jackie's Way, which is Jackie's Terrible Temper. It's the first of 13 in a series of 13 books. Follows a young girl, which is really, really me growing up, different things that happened to her growing up and how she overcame different life problems. So the first one deals with bullying and anger management. And it kind of chronicles her challenge of dealing with these two bullies on the street, and also her own anger because she's always fighting. And then the previous books were books of poetry. The first one was Strong Black Coffee, poetry and prose to entertain and inspire, encourage, and enlighten Americans of African descent. And then Scenes from the City, which is another book of urban poetry. And then In the Absence of My Father, which is a book of poetry that talks about despite the name, it actually was written to affirm the importance of fathers and the importance of men, and how despite what the world messages the world is giving, especially our black men, that you are important, you are vital, we need you.
Right.
And no disrespect to any woman who has had to be a single mother. At one point, my mother had to raise us without my father's help, but a woman can't teach a man how to be a man. I don't care how strong we think we are, how much we think we know. I watch how my husband deals with my kids and deals with my sons. I can't teach them that. And, and so it was kind of written to let you know what happens in your child's life when you're not there and what can happen when you are there.
Okay, I like that. Now, touching back on the infertility, can you explain what the infertility press is about and why you and your husband started it?
We started it for the sole reason to publish the book. I had a publisher, but I didn't really like the direction they wanted to take the book, and I realized that because the book was so personal, we talked about it, and we wanted to be able to control it because we understood that once we handed it over to a publisher, a publishing company, it belonged to them for the most part. And it was kind of like I didn't want to give up my baby. That's what it felt like. I was putting it up for adoption, so we decided to start it so that we could publish the book, but also so that we could make it available for whatever cost we wanted to, So right now, we practically give it away. I mean, it's available as a download for 99 cents. And in fact, eventually, no reason it's not, because I just haven't gone in there to change it. But, we really just want to give it away as a download. And I think we even have the paperback. I have to go check. It's at cost because we consider it our ministry, and we just want anyone who is dealing with infertility to be able to have the book. And literally, I tell people, if you know someone who's struggling with it, call me. I'll give them a copy of the book. I'll send it to you.
Awesome. Well, if I find out anyone who needs to know something, I will definitely hit you up.
Absolutely.
Now, for someone who wants to write a book but doesn't know about publishing, what are some tips you can give them?
The biggest thing is, the good thing is now, as opposed to when I started, the process is so much easier. One of the biggest tips I will tell you is don't fall for the subsidy press. Don't go for these print-on-demand places that want to charge you astronomical fees because there are a lot more cost-effective ways. There's so much free information out there. If you go online and Google self-publishing, there's tons of information to tell you what to do. Now, I will say, if you are a person who is not self-motivated, go ahead and find a good print-on-demand. In Dayton, there's a place called Queen Bee Publishing. I don't use her, but she is a colleague of mine, and the only reason I don't use her, I didn't have to because I studied and did all the research myself, but she's someone that I highly recommend. Her prices are fair, her prices are reasonable. So you want to compare prices. If you're not self-motivated, you're not going to do it yourself, and you're going to pay somebody, compare prices. I know people who've gotten ripped off and paid $15,000, $20,000 when they could have paid $5,000. Yeah, and if you are self-motivated, you can probably get it done for $1,000. The one thing I'll always tell people is invest in an editor. It's worth the money. Don't skimp on an editor. Pay the money.
Nice.
Don't rush the process. I see a lot of people who are so in a hurry to get a book out because for whatever reason, I just got to get a book out. And they don't take the time to hone their craft. They don't take the time to have someone else read their manuscript. They get upset when someone tries to critique them. Listen to the criticism and critique. Don't get uptight. If you're not thick-skinned, this is not the game to be in. You want to put your best face out there. And that's the biggest thing. And ask a lot of questions, and there's lots of books out there. If you go to the library, just get some books. And I know I'm not trying to be vague. And it's just because there's so much information already out there. if you're willing to look for it and just take your time and read it.
No, I think what you just said is very helpful, and I hope it touched someone today.
Yeah.
Become a motivational speaker. Like, was that something that intersected with the spoken word as a poet that you've done?
Yeah, it naturally intersects with being a poet, and also I have a background in theater, so it intersects with that. I have a background in social work and social services, so I did a lot of public speaking to a lot of groups, a lot of young people, and so all these things kind of naturally intersected. And that was another thing that I always wanted to do, so I was very fortunate that in a lot of the jobs that I had, I was able to do that, and then just public speaking, all those things come naturally.
Okay, cool. Now, do you have any spoken word engagements coming up? I mean, I know you're a poet, so I gotta ask.
The next one will be at the Ed Dixon Gallery in Dayton, Ohio on June 27th. I'll be speaking. I work for a radio station, so I'll be reading some poetry there. And then Daily Motion, I have my videos on Daily Motion under Emperor Publishing TV. So if you want to see my videos, you can also catch a couple of them on Instagram. Lena Arnold, that's what I'm under. And I've got another, a couple more coming up in June. Most of them are local right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Well, I'm pretty sure if anyone's in town that's listening, they'll be there. I wish I could come. I need to set a date so I can make sure I come and check you out.
Well, I can give you a teaser. I can read some poetry for you before we get off the phone. So let me know what you're in the mood for.
Okay. Now, your wife, a mother, a twin, a journalist. I mean, the list goes on. How do you handle wearing all these hats? I know it's got to be compartmentalization and stuff like that, correct?
That's the biggest thing. I get asked that question a lot. And the short answer is, that old saying, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? It's kind of the same thing. I spent several years just writing and publishing. I didn't do any engagement. I didn't go out. I didn't really talk to people. I didn't make videos. I just focused on getting out products because that was all the time that I had. And then there was a point where I worked on my videos because I knew that I was not in a place to be able to travel or go around the world or go around to different places because my kids were really young. So I put out the videos, and now I'm at a place where I can start to go out. I can start to speak. My kids are older. They can pretty much take care of themselves. So I didn't do everything all at once. So I have several books out, but they kind of came first.
Okay. I see that. Now, what upcoming projects do you have? You gotta give us the scoop.
The book, Jackie's Way, continuing to move that forward and trying to work with getting that. The ultimate goal is to have that as a children's cartoon series. Wow. The other thing is trying to translate. Well, a lot of them are translated. I just haven't finished up the process of actually getting them published, but translating my current works into Spanish.
Okay, I like that. That's
awesome. Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a bigger or broader audience. So.
Absolutely. So I just finished the translation of In the Absence of My Father into Spanish. So now I'm in the process of getting that published and getting it to market.
Okay, congratulations.
Thanks.
To seeing that come to fruition. That's awesome. And before you go, can you please share your social media with our listeners?
So you have lenafieldsaRnold.wordpress.com. That's my blog. I'm on Facebook under, I know it's really weird, that's another long story. I got stories for everything. Harn Publisher, HARN. That's on my Facebook. And then Instagram, Lena Fields Arnold. And I'm on Pinterest, but I'm not going to lie. I don't use it that much. I probably should.
It's all good. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on my show today. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Did you want me to read something? Do you want me to read something before I go?
You know what? Sure, why not? The floor is yours.
Okay. I'll make it really quick. Let's see. I'll leave you with something inspirational because I just finished my black belt after 7 years. Now, most people in Cook One, it doesn't take them 7 years. It took me 7 years because I had a lot of challenges. I had surgeries. One of my sons had surgery, sicknesses, just all kind of setbacks. So this is just a reminder. I put this poem at the end of every book that I publish, and it's called The Finish. When your dreams have been broken in pieces and your hopes appear as glass shattered, remember, it's not how you started, it's how you finish that matters. Though through the course of this life you may falter and the end seems nowhere in sight, remember the sun always arises to displace the dark of the night. Through faith there are mountains to conquer and valleys yet to go through. But if we trust in the Master, no dream is too lofty for our hearts to pursue. Hope is contained in the spirit that believes on broken wings it can still fly towards the new life in tomorrow as it tosses today's torments aside. So in this life, as we strive for perfection, some dreams will become broken and shattered. But remember, it's not how you started, it's how you finish that matters.
Oh my God, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome. And I'll post it on my Instagram page so you guys can see it and have a copy of it.
Sure, I'll definitely post it in my story. So go ahead and post it up so I can post it.
Awesome. Will do. Thank you so much for allowing me to be on your show. I appreciate it so much.
It's been my pleasure. You have a great day.
You too. You too. God bless you guys.
God bless you too. It's your girl, Sharryse.
All right.
Digital Dope Radio.